Okay, so let me bring up a few pages. The first one I'm going to do is the My Devices portal. And we also want to bring up the authentication log so we can monitor the activity. Okay, so let's log in. We're going to be using the user admin one. So let's log into the My Device portal. And here we have the monitoring page. Okay. So the first device we will be testing is the iPhone. So here is our iPhone. So first thing we need to do is to connect to the SSID LM internal. So go to settings, make sure the Wi-Fi is turned on. And here we have LM internal. If we click on it, now we're being prompted for the username and password. So go ahead and log in using admin1. Password Cisco. Let's see. Click. Okay, and then click join. Okay, now we're just going to accept the ISE certificate. Okay, and going to the monitor page, refresh. We have successfully authenticated admin1, and we are receiving the authorization profile LMWLAN ISE only. So I'll access the iPhone has right now is to ISE. And let's take a look if there's anything we can look at on the wireless LAN controller. Go to client. Click on that. The username is admin1. Connected, associated. On VLAN 64. Policy manager state supplicant provisioning right here. And we also, or the controller is also showing the redirect URL. So if we go back to our iPhone and open a browser, let's say we want to go to, say Cisco.com works. Okay, so we're getting redirected to ISE device registration page, and then it's asking us to trust the LM root CA, which is the root CA for the certificate I was using. So we just go ahead and accept that. You can see under the device ID field, the MAC address of our iPhone wireless adapter has already been populated for us. So for the description, let's just type iPhone and then go to register. Okay, so now once the device is registered, ISE is trying to push out a profile to our device. You can look at the detail, and one would be the certificate of ISE. Actually, the profile has been signed by ISE certificate. Then if you click install, it's prompting you to install the profile, so go install now. See, now it's requesting the certificate, so it's trying to generating the key. Give it a second. Now it's enrolling for certificate and installing profile. You know, it's going through pretty quickly here. Step through that again. For some reason, iPhone has to go through the process twice. You will see there'll be two certificate issue on our CA server. And now the profile has successfully been installed. If we click in more detail and see what exactly has been installed, one is the root certificate. The second one is the certificate that has been issued to the device itself, called with the admin one. And the last thing we see is the actual Wi-Fi settings. Let's see with LM internal. Okay, so now I go and say done. If you go back to the monitoring page and refresh, you can see how now the authorization profile permitted has already been given out. Okay, so we should now have internet access or network access on our iPhone. Let's go to cisco.com one more time. Okay, you can see now we're getting through to the internet. Okay, just to show you the certificate that's been issued out. So go to certificate authority. and then issue certificates. Here, scroll down to the bottom. You see the first certificate that was issued by the CA was one that has all these numbers, and then admin one. And the other one is the one that's actually been installed by the device. So there are two of them. And again, just to make a quick note, the issue to name came from the actual username, and for the subject alternative name contains the device MAC address. And again, all of these has been chosen by ISE, because ISE is actually acting as a SCEP proxy. So the client doesn't really need to talk to the certificate server directly, and it wouldn't have been able to anyway, because the access list, we have locked it down to just talking to ISE. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the authentication detail. Let me bring up both. While it's loading up, let's take a quick look at the My Device portal, and here we have the description of iPhone, the device registered. Okay, so this is the first one where the device is trying to onboard. You scroll down, right here it said authentication succeeded. Not too sure why up here it said authentication protocol is eap-tls, but if you scroll down a little further, let's see. Right here it's clearly said it's PEEP with MS-CHAP v2, which is what we expected, that the protocol, as the protocol the device will first use to connect to the network. And here it matched the authorization rule of BYOD onboard. And then ISE check for the group membership for one is wireless user and the other one is BYOD user. Okay, so at least authentication happened through PEEP. And then the second round of authentication, when the device is trying to get back onto the network once it's obtained all the profiles and certificate, is using eap-tls. So eap-tls. Okay, this is where the device became a registered device, and it matches the authorization rule called the BLAN BYOD, which is resulting in a permit all authorization profile. And at this point, the device has got full access to our network. Okay, let's go ahead and test the blacklisting the device. So now here on the device portal page, on My Devices portal page, the user can click the device as lost or mark it as lost. We'll click on that, confirm, go back to the monitor page and see if anything happened yet. Okay, you can see an empty lock entry, which is usually indicate a COA that went out. So back to our iPhone, let's see if we can try to click on something on the page here. And now we are being redirected to a block page. Okay, so go back here. You can see now the device become a part of a group called blacklist. Okay, let's go ahead and reinstate. Again, sometimes what I've seen is this may or may not happen immediately. It might require the device to disconnect and reconnect for the change to take effect. But for us right here, it looks like it happens dynamically without having to disconnect and reconnect. So let's try again, cisco.com, and we're back on the network. Okay, so that is for iPhone. The next type of client we're gonna test is Android. So let me bring up the Android device. So when dealing with Android is a little different, because Android actually requires an application called Cisco Network Assistance to be installed. There's a couple options that you can use. The first one is to allow the device, once it's connected first time, to have access to Google. But again, since we can't really know exactly which IP unless you sniff it out and assume that the IP will never change, for the device to always have access to Google, specifically Google Play, to download the app. But pretty much that means you probably need to open all the access to the whole Google IP subnet, which might include something else that might be undesirable, things like YouTube. So that would be one way of tackling it. The second way is to, as part of the instruction that you hand out to the user, and tell them to pre-download the application, whether it's when they're still at home or through their 3G, 4G data, and just basically tell them to download the Cisco network assistance program before they're trying to initiate the onboarding process. And that's what we're going to do in this video. So here we have an Android device. First, we're trying to connect to the wireless. So first we'll turn on Wi-Fi. And here we see the network. Let's see if we can find the LM internal one. Here, there you go, LM internal. We'll click on that. Interface is a little different, but for EAP method, by default, on our particular Android device is selected PEEP, and then we have to change that to MS-CHAP v2 for the inner authentication. Identity, we'll type in admin1 and our AD password. Okay, then connect. And we are now connected to LM internal. So if you go, to the monitor page and refresh, yeah, we should have this. You can see how the MAC address changed from the iPhone. So this one is for our Android device, and now it's on sitting on eyes only, or the Beeline eyes only. So now on the device, we'll go back and open the browser to initiate the registration process. Here, let's go cisco.com one more time. And I can see it's getting redirected with the certificate security prompt. So continue. Okay, it looks pretty much the same as the iPhone with the MAC address pre-populated. So all we need to do is to enter the description for the device. So this one is Android. Okay, and then click register. You can see immediately once you register your Android device, it will try to redirect you to play.google.com. So at this point, if you allow on the access list the Google subnet, IP subnet, you will be presented with the play.google where the user can proceed and download the Cisco Network Assistant app. But since we are not allowing that, we will need to initiate or open the application manually. Okay, so here we bring up our Cisco Network Assistance application. Let's see if we can find that real quick. Right here. So assuming the user has already downloaded before they're trying to connect to the network, so we'll bring up Network Assistant setup. Here is what it looks like. Okay, so you see after you click Start Install Certificate. So click on Certificate Installer. Now it's asking you to rename the certificate. By default, it used your username admin1 already. So let's keep that. Click OK. And let's see, it's asking you one more time, and it's just a second certificate it's just received for ISE. So let's keep the same name as well. Now it's trying to connect to the network. Okay, and now it came back and said it has successfully connected to LM internal. Okay, so let's take a look on the back here, and you can see now we are at the permit all, and the device has been registered. Okay, that means we should have access to the network. So let's go and go back to our web browser, and let's try to access the Google Play that we were trying to access just now, and see if we can access it already. Okay, enter. And we are now on the Google Play page. Alright, you can see that we have successfully connected the device to the network through the onboarding. Again, this is for the Android. Now let's go to the My Device Portal page and do a quick test on the blacklist. Here we have Android. Okay, so let's go and mark it as lost. Confirm that. Again, go back to the monitor page and see if anything went out. Okay, and we see an empty log for COA. Let's try to go to cisco.com. And it looks like we are getting blocked at this point. So again, go back and reinstate. Click yes. Back to the monitor page. And now we're back on permit all. So we should now have access to the internet again. Okay. So that we're done with the mobile device, iPhone and Android, let's move on to our final test client, which is the Windows machine. So let me get that out of the way and bring up the Windows machine. Right here, we're yet to connect to the wireless network, so let's go ahead and connect with LM internal. And it's prompting you for password, username, password. So let's first try the one that we know is going to fail, which is employee 1. So we try employee 1 and password. You can see here it's asking you to whether or not you want to trust the credential that is just received, and it is the root CA, or it's a root CA certificate. And this is because on this particular machine, we're not yet trusting the root CA certificate, so it's nice of Windows to prompt you whether or not you want to trust it. So I've seen occasions where it doesn't even do this, and that means you have to go through the manual wireless network settings and manually make it not to trust or validate the certificate. But here, since it's prompting you for this, let's go ahead and connect. You can see we're not able to connect, and if you go to the monitor page, you can see the log says it's rejected per authorization profile, and this is because the employee 1 is not part of the wireless user group, which is one of our conditions under the authorization rule that we created earlier. Okay, so now we're going to try to reconnect, but this time instead of using employee 1, we're going to use admin 1. And then click OK. Same thing, we're getting prompted again. We'll click connect. You can see now there's a bubble pops up that says additional login may be required, and click to open your web browser. So if you click on that, it automatically launches your default web browser, and you get redirected to the ISE device registration page. And here again, the MAC address is pretty populated, and just because I was playing around with this multiple times already, it kind of remembers the description. So let's use that and go ahead and register. Now it's going to try to launch Cisco Network Setup Assistant. And here I got a popped-up window that looks just like when we stepped through the wired onboarding, but instead it said it's going to modify your Wi-Fi device with LM internal. So click Start. Okay, so now it's asking you if you want to trust the LM roots certificate, or if you want to install it rather. So go, or actually delete, because I have that installed previously. So let's say we want to delete that, and then it will ask you if you want to, whether or not to install it. So here, let's say we are trusting this particular root certificate, and yes, go ahead and install. And now for some reason it keeps failing, and I've tried this a couple of times already. I'm not sure if this is something to do with the client provisioning with the ISE 112 or not, but you can see from the previous mobile device that we test, iPhone and Android, it went through successfully with pretty much the exact same configuration, except it's not a Windows machine. So if you guys have tried this out and have a different experience or know what might be causing this, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. But for now, let's move on. Okay, so that should wraps up our video on single SSID wireless onboarding. As you can see that with single SSID, you're heavily relying on authentication, initial authentication with PEEP, where user gets a chance to lock in using their credentials. But sometimes that may or may not even work. So let's say a user is trying to first time connect to the wireless. It depends on operating system. I've seen different scenarios or occasions where you might not even get prompted for a username and password, which means the user have to manually goes to the wireless network settings and manually create this profile. And that's obviously an additional step that a user has to go through, and you may need to include that as part of your onboarding instruction that you hand out to your users. But you can see in the next video when we look at the dual SSID, you might see that this may be solved by using dual SSID using the guest portal login page. So check out the video for the dual SSID. That might be a better solution for you. So with that said, let's move on to our next ISE BYOD video.